Welcome back. You're listening to another episode of 123 All Ears on Me. I'm Kaylina Mills, and I'll be your host. Today we're going to replay a webinar on licensing for outdoor childcare programs. This webinar originally took place on December 7th, 2023, and it was offered jointly by Maine AEYC and the Maine Early Childhood Outdoors Network, also known as MeECO or MeECO. As you listen to the recording of the webinar, you will first hear from Ann Adams, the network coordinator for MeECO. And as the host of the webinar, she will guide you through the webinar conversation and introduce the three panelists, Sessa Salas, Jess Lab, and Jessica Lewis. As always, we will add any resources mentioned during the conversation in the show notes, so check there if you're looking for links to those resources. Before we jump into the episode, I have two pieces of news to share with our listeners. First, the Connecting ECE statewide conference happening in May now has tickets available for sale. These tickets are available for anyone who did not already hold a ticket to the conference in October, which is when the event was originally scheduled to happen. With the postponement of the conference to May 3rd and 4th, new folks have the opportunity to get a ticket. So if you weren't able to get a ticket to the original dates in October, now is your chance to get a ticket for the rescheduled dates in May. You can go to maineaeyc.org/conference to learn more and register. Tickets are very limited in this resale, so please act quickly if you want to attend. The second piece of news I have to share is that Maine AEYC has released a book to celebrate our 20th anniversary. It looks back on the past 20 years and the people who have shaped our organization, as well as looks forward to the future of the ECE field in Maine, honoring current outstanding leaders in the field and recognizing 20 young teachers to watch. It's now available for purchase on Amazon, so please order a copy for yourself and for your program today. You can find the purchase link at maineaeyc.org on our 20th anniversary page. Happy reading! "2024 is Maine AEYC's 20th anniversary, and we want to celebrate with all of you. We are planning a variety of events to bring educators together in joyful community across the state. Every 20th anniversary event will be fun, hands-on, and playful, and they will all be free or low cost because you deserve to be celebrated for everything you do for children and families. You deserve to have fun. Our first 20th anniversary celebration is on March 10th at St. Joseph's College in Standish, Maine. Registration is open now, so don't wait. Join us for a lighthearted evening of music and movement with Chrissy Fowler of Belfast Flying Shoes. An early childhood educator herself, Chrissy will lead us in a night of contra dancing and give us a sense of how we could all lead similar activities in the classroom with our young students. This event is free to attend, and all participants will get a 1-hour certificate for elective training in music and movement in the classroom. You get to play, dance, laugh, and connect with each other while earning professional development hours. You can learn more about this event and others at maineaeyc.org on our 20th anniversary page. Registration is now open for the March event, and space is limited, so register today. maineaeyc.org/20th-anniversary. That's maineaeyc.org/20th-anniversary. We can't wait to see you there.
Are you thinking about going back to school to get your early childhood education degree? Maine AEYC and the Office of Child and Family Services wants to make it happen for you. We are proud to facilitate the Teach Scholarship Program so that early childhood educators throughout the state can go back to school to get their associate or bachelor's degree with most expenses covered.
The TEACH program is unique because it's a partnership between you, Maine AEYC, and your employer. Together, we all work to ensure that you can successfully meet your career and educational goals. If you get a TEACH scholarship, Maine AEYC pays for 85% of your tuition costs, your employer pays for 7.5%, and you are only responsible for the remaining 7.5% of your tuition cost. For those seeking their associate degree, that's an average of only $260 per year that you must pay out of pocket.
Exactly, Tony. You can get your degree through the Teach Scholarship Program for very little money and without having to take out loans. It's such a phenomenal program to support early childhood educators throughout Maine. In addition to funding your tuition, Teach recipients are paid for 2 hours a week of release time so that they can study without losing pay from work or time from their families. The scholarship provides a stipend each term, and the scholarship pays for 85% of your book costs. The scholarship provides so much to its recipients.
And in addition to all of those benefits, Teach Scholarship recipients get one-on-one counseling and support from a Maine AEYC staff member to ensure that they can successfully complete their program.
It's so simple to apply for a Teach Scholarship. Go to maineayc.org/application and download the application to your computer. After that, it should only take about 30 minutes to fill out the form and apply.
Again, that's maineayc.org/application. maineayc.org/application. Apply for a Teach Scholarship today and get back into the classroom to get your degree.
To the outdoor childcare licensing webinar put on by Maine Early Childhood Outdoors. My name is Ann Adams, and I'm the network coordinator for MeECO. And we are thrilled to be hosting this evening and hope that you find it helpful. I also want to take a moment, even though we are virtual, I just want to read a brief land acknowledgement since we are I at least am in the state of Maine. Most of you are as well. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from their territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse Indigenous people still connected to this land on which we gather. This is a call for all of us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit. I want to welcome a few participants that I believe are here or were planning to come, specifically first of all of you, teachers, directors, early childhood professionals, whatever form. I know that evenings time is precious. Evenings are precious. Most of you have worked a long day, and here we are again. So I hope that it is worth your time, and I appreciate you giving your time. I also want to recognize that we have Bob Gothier, who's a licensing supervisor with DHHS OCFS licensing.
Jargon alert! As a reminder, DHHS stands for the Department of Health and Human Services, and OCFS is an office within DHHS, and OCFS stands for the Office of Child and Family Services.
I also want to recognize that we have Bob Gothier, who's a licensing supervisor with DHHS OCFS licensing department, attending tonight, as well as some members from his team. We also have Kit Harrington from the Natural Start Alliance here tonight. And also, I believe Ann Stiers is coming. She's the MeECO Public Policy and Advocacy Focus Group facilitator. So I just want to recognize that they're here and they have been contributing a lot to this initiative. And now at this time, we're going to move into a welcome here. We have gone through some of these things already. I want to give a brief synopsis of MeECO, just for those of you who don't know. We're a network of early childhood professionals and stakeholders that are supporting the outdoor nature-based work that's happening in Maine. For the sake of this webinar, outdoor nature-based is sometimes an acronym that you might see. It's ONB, and it's sort of how we refer to all work being done outside in a nature-based capacity with young children. We serve the ages of birth through 8, or roughly grade 2. So we're straddling both sectors in our state, and we are inclusive of family child care, center care, private schools, family play groups, as well as public schools, public pre-K, run the whole gamut there. We have 3 primary impact areas. That's public policy and advocacy, which is tonight's webinar is one of those initiatives. We also focus on professional learning and also network resources and data collection. Please use our website to join our mailing list or to find our calendar for a full list of events and to get involved. I'm going to stop talking shortly in our welcome. And then we will have 3 wonderful panelists here tonight who are going to share some experience from their programs in regards to outdoor nature-based work and licensing regulations. I will come back on after that to share a little bit more specifically about our public policy and advocacy work. And Kit Harrington, who's also here from the Natural Start Alliance, will share on what the national landscape looks like. And then finally, we will end with an open listening forum, which will be a chance for you to share. We can unmute and you can share verbally, or there are opportunities via poll or chat and Q&A tools to give your feedback anonymously or your questions or concerns. So there'll be time for that. So without further ado, we'll move on to the sort of this portion of the webinar, which is a chance for us to hear from 3 wonderful leaders in outdoor nature-based work with young children. Sessa Salas is the director of the People Place Cooperative in Camden, Maine. She's also a MeECO Steering Committee member. And then we will hear from Jessica Lewis afterwards from Inch by Inch Preschool, also a MeECO Steering Committee member. And finally, Jess Lab, who is down at Village Nest Cooperative in Elliott, Maine. And she is a member of our Public Policy and Advocacy Focus Group. So I am going to turn it over to Sessa now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sessa Salas. I'm the director of People Place Cooperative Preschool in Camden, Maine. So happy to be here and invited to share my story with all of you, hoping it will be helpful to you. And I know how evening meetings can be really tough, so I appreciate your commitment to being here and learning about nature-based education and licensing. So I will just kind of briefly go through, who we are, what we do, and I have some slides. I'll show you our outdoor spaces. I'll kind of go through a little bit of kind of a day in the life of a preschooler at our program, and then talk a little bit more about licensing at the end. So we are a Reggio Emilia inspired play-based cooperative preschool. We have been NACE accredited since 1989. I believe one of the first programs in the state of Maine to be licensed. We are accredited, sorry. And we are licensed for 47 children and have been licensed through DHS since we started in 1983. So we're a 40-year-old program. And we serve children ages 18 months up to 5 years old. We have one toddler class with about 15 families enrolled, and then the rest of our families and children are preschool age. So they're 3 to 5 year olds. We have about 2 acres of land that belongs to us. We're pretty fortunate to have that. And then 1 acre of land that we have permission to use. So if you see the slide on the right, that is a bird's eye view of our campus. And all the way to the right, there's the road. You come into the driveway, and immediately to the right, there is a fenced-in area we refer to as the garden space. And there's a little greenhouse and a couple of huts and a climber down there, and a nice big grassy area for gross motor play and running around and stuff like that. And then there's the main building there with the playground space, which is another fenced-in area right behind it. And all ages of children use those spaces and at various times of the day. And then if you look to the left of that bird's eye view there, you can see our yurt that's sort of nestled in the woods. And that is a beyond the fence space that we use. So we have the garden, we have the playground, we have our yurt in our woods. And then the children are using those spaces kind of throughout the day, depending on the schedule and the age of the child. And in our yurt program, we have 1 class typically enrolled out there between 10 and 12 children with 2 teachers. These are 3 to 5 year olds. for like an all-day kind of immersive nature-based outdoor program. So that is our school from above and our campus from above. And you can see the main building there on the slide on the left. Yep, you can go ahead and switch to the next slide, Anne. Thank you. So this is a photo of our yurt, and then there's a composting toilet right to the left of it. I decided to have a picture of this in a couple different seasons so you can kind of see the difference. And we are out there year round in all kinds of weather. And it's kind of nice to see sort of the difference in the environment during the different seasons here. And so you can go ahead and switch to the next slide. So in and around the yurt, we have a parent here at drop-off talking to a teacher in the morning. So that's where the sort of morning drop-off happens outside. And then children will spend couple hours outside exploring the different areas around the yurt. And to the left, like I said, there's that composting toilet there. To the left of the yurt. And then the left slide, you see, this is one of those sort of natural elements in the landscape that we've utilized, and the children named it and commonly refer to it as the pit, which is like this kind of concave space that the children are rappelling down. You can see. So we're very interested in children taking risks outside and using the sort of natural playscapes and natural environment to our advantage in that way. And you can switch it to the next slide. Thanks, Anne. We also, right behind the yurt, we have the strapping on the trees where we can hang hammocks where children will have rest time in the middle of their day. And then I wanted to give you just a snapshot image of what our composting toilet on the inside looks like. It also functions as a storage area, but you can see sort of the potty there. And this was, we worked with licensing to get this approved. We worked with town code enforcement officers to also make sure that we were following rules around pottying. We're within the town limits, so there are rules specific to that. Go ahead and switch slides, Anne, please. Thank you. So after sort of the morning time, the teachers will venture sort of farther away from the yurt. And here you can see a couple of children with the sled in the winter. We have carts and wagons that we use that have wheels during the other seasons, just to bring whether it's children's lunches out to what we call base camp, or whatever we need to transport through the woods. We have a bit of a trail system, and you can see the children are helping with this. So go ahead and switch slides, please. And so this is a picture of two pictures of base camp, which is not too far away from the yurt, but it's far enough away so that we have to bring gear with us. We have to bring food for lunch or snack with us. You can see a couple of air pots behind the teacher that we use for washing our hands. And we had built this hut to protect from the elements. If it's raining, we can still eat under there. And we use this year round. And on the left slide there, there's a place for children to hang their backpacks. And teachers are bringing out the first aid kits with them. They're bringing out anything that they need to address or respond to the needs of the children. And they've been trained to do this. So, there's been a lot of learning and training and professional development around making sure that we're doing all of these things safely with children. Go ahead and switch it to the next slide, please. Yeah. So here's kind of a close-up shot of child who is washing their hands. So I worked with my licensor on different ways and creative ways to make sure that we're following licensing rules. Hand washing is obviously one of those big ones that we want to make sure children have access to when we're outside in the woods. So we have, and the licensor has, she's been great about working with us and partnering with us and helping support different ways and approaches to making sure that we're following these rules. So in these air pots, we have one that has warm soapy water in it, hot, not hot, but warm enough, and then warm water to rinse. And so before they eat, after they use the potty, this is what we use. And then I wanted to include a slide of our greenhouse, which is in the garden area that I referred to earlier, which is not in the woods, but this is where a toddler class spends a lot of their time outside. And we converted this greenhouse into an outdoor bathroom of sorts. Again, getting creative. This was during the pandemic, actually, when, we really needed to have children outside, and we were problem solving and getting creative in terms of how can we do that in a way that is, safe, that is following the rules that the licensor would approve of. And so you can see a changing table, and then in the far right corner there, there's a little bucket potty there too, that we use. And so I just wanted to include that example of an outdoor potty situation. And I have another one too coming up. So this one is one that we use by base camp. So this is in the woods. It's a little bit too far. So when the children in the class is out in the woods, they're a little bit too far from the yurt, the composting toilet, or the main building to use a bathroom. So we, again, kind of got creative, and we built this little platform where there's a bucket with a seat, and we have all the supplies we need out there. We have the pop-up tent that we use for privacy and for protection, and the children love using this. This is not something that children are averse to using. Teachers don't, it's more helpful for them to have this be accessible to children quickly. Obviously, I mean, when you work with children, you understand when you need a potty, it's important. And so this was just another way to make sure that children, when they're out in the woods, can take care of business. And again, this has been approved by our licensor. Okay, go ahead and switch to the next. And then I included this slide, which is the Weather Watch guide that we use. So obviously, there's so much training and learning about when it's safe to be outside and when it's not. And obviously, weather is one of those elements that we pay very close attention to. We have teachers looking at the weather report for the week, giving parents a sort of heads up in terms of what gear to plan on, sending their child to school with, in terms of, the things that we look for are wind chill factor and wind generally, because out in the woods, branches can come down if there are high winds. But we will get outside, most days. But we just want to make sure that children are prepared to do that. And so we do a lot of education around gear and what kind of gear children need. And, if they can't afford to buy the gear because it can be expensive, we ask for grants, and we have extra on hand. We have secondhand stores where we have accounts where parents are welcome to go and get that gear if they need it. So we really just try to support, the families through having their children attend our program. So, and I would say that, generally, like I think that's my last slide. And so I think I'm all done. I'll just briefly kind of talk a little bit about, like, my relationship with my licensor has been one that sort of built on trust, and we have a good positive working relationship, and good rapport. And I feel like when that licensor comes into our program, they can kind of tell that, we've made a lot of effort to make sure that we're following licensing rules, that, we're doing what is best for children, and there is that sort of level of trust. So, I don't mind asking questions. I think licensors actually like it when program directors ask questions, because it kind of shows that they care, and they want to do well, and they want to do it right. And I would say that in terms of getting outside, like, my licensor encourages that. They support it. They understand the benefits of young children spending time outside. Um, and I think that if wherever you are on sort of your continuum in terms of where you're located, what your space is like, how much time you're taking children outside on any given day, like, I would say, just talking to your licensor about what it is you need to do to be outside more is, I think they'd be open to that. But there's a lot of learning around, like, teachers being comfortable being outside with children, and making sure that they're trained and are willing to sort of get out of their own comfort zones. It's sort of a mindset, like, and I think your program, if you're committed to it, it is something that I think all stakeholders in your program kind of need to be committed to. So, whether it's the director or admin, whether it's the board of directors, if you have one of those, or teachers, families, children, sort of everybody's, needs to sort of be on board with it. And once you make that commitment, I feel like you can figure all the other stuff out. I don't think it doesn't have to be fancy to go outside. And as a matter of fact, it can be quite dirty, as it should be. You don't need fancy spaces to get outside. And, establishing routines, a schedule, some policies around it, making sure there's the right gear, communicating to families. So, I mean, we've put a lot of effort to make sure that we're doing it in a way that feels safe and constructive and beneficial to everyone in the program here.
Thank
So,
you, Sessa.
yeah,
Cool.
sure.
So Sessa was People Place has been around for forever and ever. So she started us off with sort of a program that's been well seasoned. And now we're going to move to Jessica. If you can you, I think I might have to ask you to mute.
Hello. My name's Jessica Lewis. I own Inch by Inch Preschool in Wilton. We built it and opened it in 2006. We're a full day preschool serving children ages 3 to 5. We have 20 preschoolers per day with 3 full-time teachers, including myself. Many of the children are 5 days a week, but some do come 3 or 4. So that means on different days of the week, we have different mixes of children. We're open 7:30 to 5, and we are a licensed childcare facility, so it's not on the same property as my home or attached to a house in any way. This is a picture of the inside, or part of it at least. Our journey is a little different because we have slowly, bit by bit, moved outside more and more. You can skip to the next slide. So we originally had a much smaller, just grassed in, fenced in area when we first opened, with like bare minimum square footage, just because of costs and the way things worked out building it. But after about 7 years, we had the opportunity to add fill to a different portion of our property that allowed us to move a second playground down there, which is now our primary playground. And then so through that process, the licensors were pretty understanding considering I don't think natural playscapes really were fairly new in this area at least. And so it was pretty, like Sessa said, not fancy. The best advice I had when we added on that playground was from other providers saying to just let the children figure out what they wanted to do with it and not add too much to it until they sort of discovered the different elements that it offered. The licensors, so we've been through 3 licensors since I've been opened, and all of them have been very understanding and asked questions if they were concerned about certain loose parts or this and that. And we always worked hard to have, our safety rules, and we're able to vocalize to them about, what we were doing with the different materials. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, we built that structure that was on the last slide, and that gave us more of a gathering space. Yeah, thanks. So we really began to push ourselves to be outside as much as possible, like a lot of people did. And then, yeah, now you can flip slides. Things. So we have tables. We do all sorts of, we bring, any activity you would do inside, outside. We do our meals outside, art, puzzles, Lego. We have that stuff available for the long, hot summer days when they just want to find something to do in the shade and they've been running around long enough. Flip sides. So this is just one view. We have, sort of a more groomed wood chip area, and then there's some like gravel area in between where there's not as much going on. And then down over that bank behind that little house is more of a wooded area. And that's like covered in ferns in the summertime. And, with the 3 teachers, we kind of space out and are able to see everybody, but it gives the children, they feel like they're, escaping from the grown-ups and have more space. And this lovely boulder that when they filled in, the dump trucks left in the middle of my playground, and being fairly new to, having a natural playscape, I was horrified. I was like, the town just dropped that boulder there. And I was like, what are we supposed to do with this? How dare they? And now, fast forward 10 years later, it was one of the greatest gifts they gave us. The children love that big rock. Next slide. So yeah, this is sort of down further into our wooded area where the ferns are growing, and they drag all sorts of stuff up and down and all around, but you can see the stumps and some sticks that we have cut up so they can move things around. The back side where you can see the fence goes into our beyond. We have a little bit more space beyond that. There didn't used to be a fence there because of natural barriers. We weren't required by licensing to have a fence there, but insurance changed and we had to fence off some of our magical space. But now that we just have a gate and we travel beyond that space, and it makes it more magical for that reason. Next slide. So just another view from different angle of our playground. You can see we've got some spools and some different stuff. We don't have any sort of traditional equipment like a swing set or that slide right there is actually movable. And lots of loose parts and wagons and rocks and sticks and lots of just nature. We have a couple plastic things like these wagons, balls, but for the most part, we really try to encourage them to just find what they can in nature and use their imaginations. Next slide. Here's some winter pictures. Sometimes we have to get creative in the winter if things get real icy. We have to, move to certain parts of the playground and, rope off, not visually rope them off, but teach the children, why we're staying out of certain parts of the playground. All of our meals are outside when it's warmer, and then in the winter we just kind of base it on, those real nice February days where the sun is shining and they can keep their mittens off long enough to eat. We do try to do some meals outside in the winter as well. We have an apple tree that the children love exploring. And then here's just another angle of some of our loose parts and our canoe. And I think that's my last slide. So I just wanted to back up a little bit. I think I got ahead of myself about sort of what our day looks like. So in the warmer weather, the children get dropped off outside. We're outside all morning until after lunch, and then we do go into our building to nap, and then they get back up, use the bathrooms, and we head back out. And as the weather changes, we start doing drop-offs inside so that they can do their morning snack, use the bathroom, then we gear up and head out until either lunch when we head back in for lunch, or if we have lunch outside until nap time. Our playground, so one of the obstacles we faced is our playground is not attached to our building. So we have not dove into outdoor toileting yet, which is one of our goals, and questions of how will licensing work with us on this. And so it's encouraging to see all Sessa's ideas. Because especially like she said, with the young ones, they're potty training, it's hard to run them back and forth, but we have staffed. Our solution was basically we always have 1:0 ratio. So there's always a teacher available to do the bathroom running. If in the occasion one of those people is out and we have exact ratio, we just take a whole group of children up to the bathroom with us. But overall, as far as licensing goes, I think our licensors have always worked with us, but because we have a more traditional setup, we have, all the things we need right there. We haven't had to push back as much. During COVID, we had the hand washing outside and sort of exploring new ideas that way. But I would say that the toileting and eventually we would love to do some napping outside, but we would probably have to divide the group up because it's a lot of children to be finding the space for. We have, I would say it's less, probably about a half an acre that they have to explore. And I think, I just wanted to say that I'm thankful to be part of the work that is happening with creating these relationships with licensing in order to support providers who want to make outdoor-based programs more accessible for families. I'm excited for providers to have more educational opportunities on how to safely be outside with children more, and having support from licensing. I strongly believe, like Sessa was saying, it's about the trainings and the policies and having the documentation to back up what we're doing, educating families, licensors, and also insurance companies on the benefits and importance for providing these outdoor opportunities. And I think a huge piece also is just worrying, for those of us who have had licensors who have worked well with us, it's always worrying, when will we have a new licensor? When will that licensor be replaced? And, sort of where will they see, how will they react differently to the things the previous licensor has been okay with? So that's just a quick rundown, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jessica. Wonderful. I want to note that both Sessa mentioned town code and Jessica mentioned insurance companies. So those are not, you don't have to do with the licensing, but they are hurdles that programs can have to address. And I'm sure Jess has as well, and we'll hear from her. But MeECO is happy to explore those barriers as well, and offer whatever supports we can find. Okay, Jess.
Hi, all. It's really great to see everybody tonight. Well, not see everybody because I can't see you, but I'm really happy you're here. And it was great listening to Sessa and Jessica and hearing more about their programs. My licensing journey has been a wild one, and a few years in the making. So I'm Jessica Labby, the owner of the Village Nest Cooperative in Elliott, Maine. Prior to opening the Village Nest, I was the acting director of Eyes of the World Discovery Center in Kittery. And during the pandemic, they decided to close our program. So I had 50 families without any care and 12 staff who needed jobs. So I kind of knew I had to do something, and I wasn't really sure. I had 3 months before the school year started, and I just dove in head first. So I knew we needed to be outdoors because it was the safest way during the pandemic to get back together and to get back to some form of normalcy at that point. So we just did it. So it started as a very small journey, and then all of a sudden it just took off. I'm ready for the next slide, Anne. So at our new nest, we were able to help our students and community grow with nature. That was my only goal. And I will say that now, after 3 years open, we are the very first fully outdoor child care center in Maine. And that has been a long time in the making. We're very excited about it. And if you ask any of my staff, they're very proud to tell people that, as well as myself. So it was 3 months of work. And when I say 3 months of work, I mean every single day from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. of trying to find a location and finding insurance for us and talking to licensing and all the various things that come along with opening a center. And we weren't licensed at first. We couldn't be. There was no way. So thank you, Anne. So in August 2020, I knew I needed to open in September. So I had called licensing and I kind of explained what I was planning on doing. And they were like, well, I'm not really sure what to do with you. So why don't you continue and just keep in touch with us? We'll figure it out as we go. So we opened in September of 2020. And I sort of like waited it out for a few months to see, is this going to work? Is it not? What's happening? Meanwhile, we followed all licensing guidelines during this time period. I knew that that was important. I wanted to make sure that when we did get licensed, it would be a seamless transition. It was very hard. It was very hard, but persistence paid off. In January of 2021, I had a second call with licensing to say, hey, this is working. I don't really know what the next steps are with you guys, but we're fully outdoors. We've always had an emergency shelter, but we don't use it unless it's, oh my goodness, there's a thunder and lightning storm that's here and we absolutely have to use it. And it wasn't on the radar because I close early if there's thunder and lightning. Parents know if weather is too cold or too anything, we will be closed that day. They are prepared. They know that that is a risk. So then it was a full year before I was able to talk to licensing again because they still didn't know what to do with us. They were sort of like, well, you're an enigma. We know you're there. We're aware of this situation. And still in 2021 in January, no progress was made. We're not really sure what to do with you. We're aware. We know you're here. So a full year later in 2022, our licensor showed up. She just showed up out of the blue and was like, hi, how's it going? What's happening? And so I gave her a tour, showed her all the paperwork, and she was like, great, we still don't know what to do with you, but I just wanted to check in. And that licensor is no longer with the department, but she was wonderful. I will say, much like Jessica, in my 10 years of outdoor education, I've worked with 5 different licensors, and they've all been incredibly supportive. So in June of 2022, licensing decided it's time. We need to get you licensed. We're going to figure it out. It's going to take some time and it's going to be a process. And I was like, great, I'm ready for this. Let's do it. So we also found it out in June of 2022 that we would have to move from the location that we had originally started our program. In October of 2022, we moved to our new home, which is Rate Farm in Elliott, Maine. There's 33 beautiful acres of land, and we are so blessed to be able to use that property. 10 acres of forest and then 23 acres of field. So if you can imagine what sledding is like for us in the winter, it's pretty amazing. In January of 2023, we had another conversation with licensing where we started our application process, and that was very exciting. In April of 2023, we applied for our zoning certification through the town of Elliott, and that was a process. And for those of you considering licensing, please know that the zoning certification is very important. Working with your town code enforcement officer is very, very important. So having open, honest communication with them about what's going on. They're going to be very interested in your toileting situation and your hand washing situation, as well as licensing. And that was very important for us. So finally, after a few months, we finally went back to town hall. The initial meeting was just a here's what we're doing. Here's our application. I'm just going to present to you and let you know that this is happening. In June, we were invited back and we got our approval. So we sent over our forms, and I think I saw that Marla's on this call. She's our licenser. So Marla was very excited. We kind of did a happy dance through the phone together. She's been incredibly supportive, and so is Patty. And I think it's important that we mention them by name because they've been great. So in August, we had our first licensing inspection, and because our program is such an enigma, both Marla and Patty came out to our program. There were lots of questions. We walked the whole property. They were there for almost 3 hours. It was great. I had a great time with them. We brainstormed a lot of things, and all throughout this, I had many questions for licensing. Licensing had many questions for me. It was a back and forth communication. And much like any other relationship, there was a lot of compromise that was made on both parts. Finally, in September of 2023, we got our license and we became the very first fully outdoor childcare center in Maine. We are licensed for 40 students, but we max out at 24. We're a very small place. Small. Thank you so much, Anne. I keep forgetting to tell you to change it. So one of the things that I find to be super helpful is to phrase everything as a question. So when working with licensing, I want to help them to help me, especially since our programs are so different from many of the programs that they work with. So when they say something doesn't meet the requirements, I will often ask, why doesn't this meet the requirements? Or if something meets the requirements, but I'm not sure why, I'll ask just so that I have the answer and can then use that information for other areas. And then what does meet the requirements? If something that I'm doing doesn't meet the requirements, what could I do to change it? If they don't have an answer, then usually I'll do some research on my part and send them some solutions to see what could be an agreed upon solution. And then waivers. I don't know if you know that this is an option, but you are allowed to apply for waivers for your program. So one of the waivers that we applied for, because in the licensing handbook, it says that you need to have access to hot and cold running water for hand washing. However, the CDC says that it just has to be running water for hand washing. It doesn't need to be hot or cold, and there isn't a specific temperature as long as it's not scalding. So we applied for a waiver for hand washing because we did not have access to hot water, only cold water or lukewarm water. And we passed. We had our waiver agreed upon and passed. Another question is, what exactly is the expectation with this guideline? Sometimes the guidelines are very vague and you don't really understand what are you getting at with this? So asking what the expectation is with the guideline usually will get you some sort of an answer and make it so that you can understand a little bit better and make a better decision for that problem. How can I meet the expectation for the guideline? So if you're not really sure, asking these questions, it won't hurt anyone to ask the follow-up questions. And then really the next step is following up. Every time you have to ask a question or you have to go back and forth, licensors are incredibly busy. They have huge caseloads, much like we do. So it's very important that we help us by following up with them. So I follow up with Marla all the time. I will often research alternative solutions to see if there's another way for us to do things, apply for waivers with research-based evidence. That's what we did with our hand washing waiver. I made sure that I had research in place to show that what we were doing still followed most federal guidelines. And then consulting with other state departments for requirements when needed. We had a situation with our composting toilets where no one was really sure if they were able to be approved. So I followed up with the Department of Environmental Protection to make sure that we weren't violating any codes on their end. And when you follow up with another state department, it just shows that, first of all, you care about the guideline. And second of all, that you understand why the guideline is important. And also consulting government agencies when you need to. So beyond just state departments, there are government agencies that can often help you with your research as well. That's it for this slide, Anne. I think that might be my last.
That's your last slide, but I am going to put some pictures up.
Thank you.
Just so that people can see more images of your program. You also have the hammocks for resting.
Oh, great. Yes, we do. And actually, we sleep outside all year long. Our hammocks have 20-degree sleeping bags that wrap around them for winter. So we sleep outside even on the coldest days. They were out in their little cocoons today. And we also have Fire Wednesdays. So every Wednesday we have a fire where we cook together over the fire. And this picture over here of the hammocks was actually our first day.
Nice.
Yeah, and we do all the same things that you would do indoors, only we do it outdoors. Here's one of our little friends having soup. And we also have our mitten activities. This has been a huge hit this year. The kids love the mitten.
Each year, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, also known as NAEYC, coordinates the Week of the Young Child. Childcare programs, elementary schools, AEYC affiliates, businesses, and more all come together to celebrate young children during this week and bring awareness to their unique needs. It is a time to educate your community, local business leaders, policymakers, congressional delegates, and local officials about the importance of early childhood education. In 2024, the Week of the Young Child will take place from April 6th to April 12th, and we here at Maine AEYC want to help you celebrate. We are offering $5,000 in mini grants to help childcare programs and elementary schools cover the costs of hosting a Week of the Young Child event. If you want to host a Week of the Young Child event in your community, you can find the grant application on our website at maineaeyc.org/events. In the past, our Week of the Young Child mini grants have supported events like parades, town festivals, library events, museum events, concerts, and outdoor play days. Applicants for mini grants can request between $100 and $1,000 for their event. All applications are due by February 23rd, and winners will be announced on February 29th. If you're curious to learn more about the application and what Maine AEYC is looking for, you can also join us for an informational webinar on February 1st. Registration for the webinar and full details about the application can be found on our website at maineaeyc.org/events. So we hope you'll apply for a mini grant and host a Week of the Young Child celebration in your community. We can't wait to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jess, for sharing your
No
story.
problem. Thank you for
There's
having
so
me.
much more to that story, but in brief, that's it. So thank you. And we are running a little bit behind schedule, but we will try to speed things up a little bit so that everyone can get out of here on time. Thank you to the three of you for sharing a little bit about your programs and the story. And we hope that that gives people a glimpse into the many different, like someone mentioned, the continuum, different ways that you can practice outdoor education with young ones within the licensing bounds, and also some strategies on how to work with your licensor. One of those strategies is to use us as a resource. So our policy and advocacy focus group has a licensing initiative, which is around just sort of supporting both the licensing department as well as early childhood programs in being able to be outside more within the bounds of our rules and regulations. We've had a really strong collaboration with DHHS OCFS licensing department for over a year now. We are thrilled to be partnering with them. We had a licensor training in the fall of 2022, and that was a 5-part series that we put on for them. And we'll be following up and hopefully doing another one this winter. Our public policy and advocacy group meets monthly. If you're ever interested in joining it, all are welcome. And we just work to sort of do some of the work around this initiative to move things forward. There's also an intersection between professional learning and the licensing initiative, in that we are also working simultaneously over here on professional learning that has to do with outdoor nature-based work for all of you. That will also align itself with licensing rules and regulations as well, so that licensing department can understand that providers are also getting really high quality outdoor training, so that they can trust that people are being safe outdoors with children. We also have some national collaborations, the Natural Start Alliance, and through them, we have made many interstate connections where we're connecting with Washington State or Massachusetts, Maryland. And I was going to see if Kit Harrington is on, but I'm going to have to ask her to unmute. Kit, do you want to say a few words about the national landscape on the licensing topic?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a map, but I am happy I can send it out. I can say that this is an incredibly exciting time to be involved in outdoor and nature-based education. I think we're really starting to understand our identity collectively in ways that are have really significant implications for kids and families and providers, and how we all work together to access these incredible benefits that you saw, and experiences that you saw highlighted here today. I can say that there are 18 states right now that are actively engaged in some form of advocacy, and there are a couple more that we're just starting conversations with. We have about 7 state agencies that are thinking, including Maine, that thanks to the incredible work that you've all been doing, are engaged in thinking about rules change in relation to nature-based practice. And I think, again, what we're seeing is as so central to what's happening is relationships. That's what I heard mentioned again and again tonight, the power of relationships, and both in getting to the space of trust, recognizing that we're making this real shift on all sides of practice in terms of welcoming licensors into these other pieces of our practice, and also, for licensors to recognize that, hey, all of these things can happen outdoors in a way that is safe, effective, and equitable, and that we can all work together to really break down barriers to equity and access. And I'm just going to quickly put a link in the chat for anyone who's interested. There are a couple more. We have a playlist with all kinds of other licensing related resources, and we'll be excited to add this one to it soon. And please feel free to reach out and get in touch at any point. And I'm always happy to, talk or think or collaborate however I can.
Thanks, Kit. Like I said, there's and Kit just reiterated, there's a ton of support. There's a big movement. It's nationwide. Outdoor education is important for all of our students. Excuse me. And our focus here on our youngest learners is no different, and that getting them outside for more experiences is, excuse me, a focus for everybody. And we as a network are really pulling from a lot of different places to support this initiative and to support our licensing department in moving that forward. And so we're pulling from other states. We're pulling from the Natural Start Alliance. We're also pulling from a lot of other statewide organizations, the Maine Environmental Education Association, as well as the Nature-Based Education Consortium. Maine Roads to Quality is supportive. Maine AEYC is incredibly supportive. So there's a lot of movement here. And we hope that all of you who are working sort of tirelessly in the program with children, getting outdoors, that you know that we're here to support you. And if you ever need anything, to reach out. And otherwise, we're just going to keep moving forward, even if we don't hear from you for specific needs. I will say that I saw a question in the chat about weather, and we have your email. I don't want to get into specifics around that right now because of the time, but we are happy to follow up and send some resources around the cold temperatures and wind chill and how programs are addressing that as well. And in closing, I'll just remind everyone that it would be wonderful if you are interested in this initiative for you to get on our mailing list if you're not already. And also feel free to join us through on our website. There's information about the public policy and advocacy focus group that meets monthly. That's also included in our newsletter. That's a great way to get involved and offer feedback, whether you come once or you come over and over again. Either is fine. But join us there to hear about this work that's sort of ongoing over time.
Hey, thanks for listening. You've just finished another episode of 123 All Ears on Me. This podcast is a production of the Maine Association for the Education of Young Children. You can learn more about us at maineaeyc.org. The webinar was hosted by Ann Adams, and the podcast was hosted, edited, and produced by me, Kaylina Mills. Until next time.